Hello, I'm John, and I do the smokeless powder guns on this channel, and my buddy Dimwit, he does the black powder guns. We really have to talk about ammo for the Norwegian Krag rifle, 6.5 by 55 millimeters. There's a lot of misunderstanding about what kind of ammo you can shoot in these and what you can't use. We're also going to take a closer look at the three different actions that were used in the Norwegian Krag, and we're going to talk about which one is the strongest and why, and which one's the weakest and why. And I have a loose bolt here for Krag that we're going to use to show you a few things, and I got an extra extractor here, and I have several cartridges and a couple of bullets. So even if you have a lot of experience with the Norwegian Krag, you might pick up some useful information here. So please watch until the end. I got notes today because there's going to be a lot of numbers, and I'm going to be writing a lot of this down in the description of the video, so you can kind of read it there. And yeah, the 6.5 by 55 millimeter cartridge was not an invention of Mauser. It was made by a Norwegian and Swedish military commission, and for the Norwegian Krag, and the Swedes, they used the model 1896 Mauser rifle and versions of that. And the ammo was the same to begin with. It did develop a little bit in different directions, because at the time the Norway and Sweden was in a union, two different countries in a union, and Sweden was kind of the boss. And then in 1905 Norway became an independent country. So but they used the same, basically they used the same ammo, and they used the same ammo for as long as these rifles were in the military service. And Norway used the Krag. That was the only rifle up until 1940, and then after World War II, they still used the Krag a little bit up until about 1955. And what happened was that they found out, they also used these Krags for competition shooting, civilian. And what they found out was that the ammunition was a little bit too powerful, and they kind of lowered the standard velocity of the rounds and lowered the pressure. And so we're going to talk about what kind of pressure and velocity they had to begin with, and what they ended up with later, and things like that. So we'll get started. The original projectile was 10.1 grams, 156 grains, round nose bullet, and this would do 725 meters in the original loading, which is 2,379 feet per second. Nowadays this is loaded to 700 meters a second, which is 2,296 feet per second, 700 meters. And I have this is that original heavy round nose projectile, and here's the cartridge with that. And then they decided they became fashionable with Spitzer bullet, pointed bullets, and they ended up with this. So there's the difference. So they ended up with the pointed bullets, and they call that the D projectile. And that was a 9-gram bullet with 100, which is 139 grains. And this was introduced in Norway in 1925. In Sweden it was introduced in 1941. And the original loading for this pointed bullet was 800 meters a second, which is 2,625 feet per second. Today we load these to 770 to 780 meters a second, which is 2,526 to 2,559 feet per second. And the maximum pressure for the original Norwegian and Swedish service load was, well, they, depending on where you read this, they come up with some different numbers, but I've seen them mention 3,100 bars, 3,200 bars, 3,300 bars, and 3,400 bars. I have more faith in 3,200 or 3,300 bars. So that was the original pressure. Today, Norma ammo factory, they load the Krag ammo to 2,950 bar. And a lot of places they recommend the maximum pressure for the Krag at 2,800 bar. So it's the Norma Norma ammo is quite powerful for Krag. And so in 1974 they changed the rules about hunting moose and other large game in Norway, and basically they outlawed the Krag for moose hunting, and this lasted until 2002. And they had a minimum energy requirement at 300 meters. And in 2002 they changed this to a minimum energy requirement at 100 meters. And now all of a sudden the Krag was able to make those minimum requirements. So now, since 2002, it's been legal to hunt moose with the Krag again. And there were probably 3 different reasons why they kind of outlawed the Krag in 1974. One was, like we said, the energy, not enough energy, and also the Krag has a rumor of shifting its point of impact if the cartridges get wet. This is fairly common knowledge, it will go up to the left. But this is something that they didn't really know for the first 25 or 30 years. of using the Krag, it's when they started using the heavy target barrels. This problem showed up. So, but you don't usually use a heavy target barrel when hunting moose, so it's not as big of a problem. And these moose hunting Krags, they were all, most of them without scopes. So, and in the forest here in Norway, you usually don't hunt moose at very long ranges. So I don't think that was a problem. There is a third reason that has come to my attention. That was two very influential gun dealers in Norway that was pushing this issue in order to sell more guns. And those are quite a bit older than me and were interested in guns at that time. They remember this well. So now that the Krag is back in the forest hunting moose, there's a few guys that do that, not too many, but the 6.5 by 55 has always been a controversial round for hunting moose and large game. Some say it's not efficient enough. Some say it's plenty efficient if you hit where you're supposed to, and it's easier to hit where you're supposed to with the 6.5 by 55 compared to a lot of more powerful rifles, and because the rifle has less recoil, and most shooters shoot better with rifles that have less recoil. And it's the cheapest and most plentiful ammo here in Norway and Scandinavia, and you'll be able to do more training with this caliber than some more expensive, more powerful round. And compared to larger caliber rifles, a lot of those larger caliber rifles have not as flat trajectory as a Krag has. And Krag ammo really rides the wind well. So if you shooting at long ranges and you misjudge the distance to your moose, using the 6.5 by 55 will result in less of a miss than if you use a lot of these other. So I'm inclined to say that I kind of like the 6.5, and so now the American ammo for today, for all the ammo, is loaded to Saami specs, SAAMI, and they are loaded. The 6.5 by 55 specs, Saami specs, are a maximum load of 3,170 bars. And that's actually right around there where the original service load, but it's a little higher than what they recommend these days. Now the European ammo is loaded to something they call the KIP spec, or CIP spec, and they have a 3,800 maximum pressure for this caliber, which is the maximum recommended pressure for the Mauser M98. So European ammo is more powerful than American ammo in this caliber a lot of the time. And I think if you should, if you're using European or Scandinavian ammo, you should use ammo that's specifically marked on the box that it is intended for the Krag. Otherwise, chances are you'll have something that's way too powerful. The American rounds, I have never seen an American ammo box with markings just intended for the Krag. And there's a lot of people in the United States seem to think that you can use any factory loaded American ammo in the Krag, and that's not quite so. In Norway, there's a lot of misunderstanding that you can hardly use anything in the Krag, and that the Krag is a dangerous gun, and they seem to think that you can only use these practice rounds. There it is next to the projectile. And of course that's not true either. And this training, this is an older one, but these cartridges are called the Norma recruit, and they have a 6.5 gram bullet that's 100 grains, and they travel at 800 meters a second, and that's 2,625 feet per second, and they have 2,400 to 2,500 bar pressure. So it's a gentle load, but when people are using these in the Krags and they seem to think you can't use anything else, they will soon get bored and tired of the whole thing, and they'll put the Krag away and shoot something else. But you can use your 139 and your 156 grain bullets just fine. Just keep the pressure down, but still plenty of speed. Okay, let's see. Now, if you have a Krag that's been made in the years 1918 to 1920, you should be aware that at that time they had some quality issues with their steel. That's due to the First World War, and these receivers seem to blow up more often, and they took them back at the Kongsberg factory, and they gave him a heat treatment to make them less brittle, but still be careful with those. And the civilian series rifles from that area, they were never returned to Kongsberg, because at that time they didn't have all the lawyers that they got today, and they just figured, well, if their rifles ain't blown up yet, it'll be fine. So be careful with that. Let's see. Always check your bore before you shoot any gun, really, but especially important to Krag, because and never use old unboxed ammo for the Krag, because it could very well be cartridges that are intended for the M98 Mauser, and they're way too powerful. So only ammo in boxes and that are marked for that they're intended for the Krag. And let's talk about the reasons why the Krag rifles blow up sometimes. Kongsberg Weapons Factory has looked into this a couple of times. One time in between World War One and World War Two, and another time in 1950s, I think. And the conclusion was about the same. Every time a Krag blows up, somebody's done something they shouldn't have. And there, after World War II, there were a lot of people started to reload their own ammo, and they didn't have the knowledge or the right tools, and there was a lot of ammo that was questionable, to say the least. And there really wasn't much, people didn't have much money, and there wasn't that much to buy. So their cleaning equipment wasn't as nice as it was today, and so rust in the barrel will cause a Krag to blow up. Excessive amount of oil in the barrel can do it. If you have left behind something from cleaning your barrel, that will do it. So always inspect the bore before you shoot. And another reason was poor gunsmithing work, and especially changing the barrel, because the barrels will wear out once in a while and you have to change it. And a lot of these guys that changed these barrels didn't have the necessary tools and the necessary knowledge to do it. So that's basically it. Bad ammo, bad gunsmithing, and something in the barrel that shouldn't be there. So, what kind of bad gunsmithing could this be? There's there's an extractor on top of the bolt, and there's a recess milled into the top of the receiver and on the end of the barrel here, and that recess on the barrel, it's not there when you buy the new barrel. You have to make it, because you don't really know what position it's going to end up in. And when you make that recess, it's important to make it just big enough for the extractor. And some guys made it too wide and things like that, and that weakens the chamber. And also you need gauges to get the right headspace, and you need a chamber reamer to get the job done. And sometimes they didn't have chamber reamers, so they just screw the barrel in just far enough to get the right headspace, and when it actually should have been screwed in a little further and then reamed out with a chamber reamer. So things like that, and they didn't have proper tools to it takes a lot of power to unscrew these barrels and screw them back in again. And a lot of times on an old Krag you will see markings of various tools that don't belong there. So something to watch out for. Okay, I think we'll have a closer look at these things. Before I take the camera off the tripod, I'll show you this bolt. This is a bolt from a model 1912 carbine, and these have a stronger action. And if you see this extractor and we compare it to the model, this is the original model 94 and this is the model 1912. You should be able to see that the model 12 is a little more narrow and it's a little more over to the left. So this recess they cut into the threaded action and an end of the barrel is smaller and further to the left side on the model 12. And the locking lugs on the Krag, there's one here, just one, and this is also a locking lug, so there's number 2, and that's it. But if they fail, the rear surface of the bolt up here is going to act as a locking lug. So what actually happens when Krag blows up? Well, this extractor breaks off and goes flying, and the top of the receiver in front of this is gonna, depending on how bad of it blows up, it will shatter or crack or something, and pieces will go flying, and the barrel will jump forward out of the action, and sometimes the chamber will split, and sometimes fragments will be gone. So, but it would take an awful lot to have the bolt come backwards and injure the shooter. Now there are some clever guys that have posted pictures of blown up Krag actions on the internet, and they seem to be very proud of that, but they don't really tell you what happened. And what these guys have been doing is they had an old Krag that they were going to hand in to the police because you can't find any, there's nobody to buy them and things like that in Norway, and maybe it was in bad condition to start with. So they'll reload a cartridge and fill it with fast burning powder, and they'll fill it all the way up. And there's no rifle that can stand up to that. And then they take pictures and post it on the internet, and oh, look at this old Krag, it blew up, this thing is dangerous. So when I was a teenager, my mother found a porn magazine in my room, and she told me, don't believe everything you read. And that's good advice. The Krag is not a dangerous design, but you have to load it to the pressure it was made for. And these rifles are 100 up to 100 and almost 30 years old now. So we don't know what these rifles have experienced. They could have had some near-death experiences that have weakened them. So it's smart to be a little careful. Let's have a look at the 3 different designs. Okay, so what we have here are 3 Krag rifles that I have put together myself into quite modern sniper rifles. And the one to the left is a standard Kongsberg model 1894 infantry rifle, and when we look at this, we'll see that down here in the corner here, it's square. And when the Norwegian military ordered a bunch of rifles from Austria, the Steyr factory made some changes, and this one in the middle is from the factory in Steyr, Austria. And now what they did is to round this corner off, and they felt that there's less chance of developing a crack here. And that's true, but I really never seen a Krag that cracks there. But maybe some of these gunsmiths that were working with the Krag a lot in the old days saw it once in a while. I don't know, but I don't think it was, at least it was the big problem. And another thing that Steyr did is they changed the geometry here, I believe, and that makes it even smoother working action than the Norwegian Krags, but it doesn't affect the strength. So that's the difference between the Norwegian Kongsberg made Krag and the Austrian Steyr made Krag, which is also considered a Norwegian Krag because it's made for the Norwegian military. So this one here is the model 1912 carbine or receiver, and they call it a carbine, but it was actually a short rifle. That's the way most countries did it at that time. They wanted to get a shorter rifle that would replace both their infantry rifle and the carbine. And so it's a little bit of a shorter barrel, and you can expect a little more than 3% drop in velocity from an infantry rifle to a short rifle. And then the carbines, of course, are even shorter. So now we have Kongsberg had learned from what the Steyr factory did, so it's rounded off down in this corner. But they also increased the thickness of this threaded area of the receiver. If we look at the original design, this here is it's to keep the upper wood in place, and it's thicker here than it is further to the rear. The Model 12 has this thickness all the way to the rear, so that makes it stronger. So same thickness as the Model 94 here in front, but instead of getting thinner, it stays the same towards the rear. And like we talked about, the extractor is more narrow and further to the left. So this recess up inside here is more narrow, and it's further to the left. It's not as weak here on top as the original design. So that's the Model 1912 extractor, and that's the Model 94 infantry Krag. So if you feel like you should use American Saami spec ammo that are a little hotter than what we recommend for a Krag today, there's a bigger chance you'll get away with that in the model 1912. But I don't know how much stronger it is. So, and nobody has ever differentiated between the model 94 and the model 1912 Krags when it comes to recommended pressure. So, but when Kongsberg developed the model 1912, they were aware of some of these Krag rifles blowing up, and they intentionally strengthened them to cope with that. So there's no question that the model 1912 is stronger. And so if you want and reloading ammo that meets the minimum requirement for energy for moose and other large game in Norway, it's kind of a borderline deal.